Wizard shows. So at one show, about 5 years ago, he was sick. He didn't come. He was supposed to do his big, public panel on Saturday, and he didn't show up. He had a bad reaction to a flu shot. So he rallied, and they sent a plane for him, and he came on Sunday. The president of Wizard gets up before the panel, and he says, Stan is having this reaction to the flu shot, and he's only going to do 20 minutes, not the full 45. And hope you understand. And Stan looked like he was going to collapse, but like the trooper he was, he gets up on stage and he's totally lit up. And so people are flashing signs at me. It's 15 minutes, it's 10 minutes, it's 5 minutes, and then it's like so I say, Stan, as John explained to the people, these panels only 20 minutes, so anything you want to say to the audience before we leave the stage? And Stan says, is God talking to you? Did he say we have to stop? I feel great, let's keep going. Everybody from Wizard and Stan's handlers, they're flashing these signs. I have no idea what they mean. So that was, we did about 10 minutes and then we finally got him off the stage. So he did, if you ever saw him, especially in those strange last year or two where he looked like he was going to keel over and he'd get on stage. And he would light up. Anybody have any questions or any Stan stories? Anything you always wanted to know about Stan Lee, were afraid to ask? Yes, sir.
What was his real opinion of DC Comics?
His real opinion.
Natural competition.
What was the question?
What was his real opinion of DC Comics?
I don't know that he had any strong opinions. I do think he was taking shots in those early. Later he said it's not DC. It's just comic book companies. No, it was DC, but it worked. There were about 7 years where he didn't make mistakes. He did things that, at the time, I thought were a little doubtful, but they worked. And we were talking earlier today about people who get the big bucks and the big success want it. And when I met Stan, he was 42 years old and he wanted to be rich and famous.
He was old.
Yeah, okay, a week ago I was 80.
That's really, he did want it, you're right. He really, he wanted to be famous. He wanted it.
Yeah, and everybody else I know that has, probably everybody up here has made a living and has had a respectable professional life. But none of us are Todd McFarlane. A TV reporter told me McFarlane was worth $78 million, and that was almost 10 years ago. Neil, of our exact contemporaries, you have to really want it. I think Stan grew out of most of the negative things that come with that. And I have one Stan story I haven't told. Stan flirts with my wife. Do you think he'll
okay. Let your conscience be your guide here then.
She's been dead a year now. I married my childhood sweetheart after having not seen her for 30 years. And she came into my world, and of the 3 people that she knew about but had never met, Jerry Conway, Neil Adams, and Stan Lee. And and she was the only person I know who watched Stan's TV series, and she read all the comics I brought into the house. She was a real fangirl and a superb teacher. So she gets onto an elevator, and there is Stan himself, and she said, "Oh, well, Mr. Lee, I'm And he said, "Of course you are. You have not changed a bit. You are as beautiful as you have ever been. Oh, I can't get over how wonderful you look." And the doors open and Stan says over his shoulder, "Well, goodbye, Virginia." Her name was Mary Pratt.
I think when you think about the competition between the companies, obviously it's competition, but Stan like had dinner regularly with Conrad Infantino, and he was, I think everybody knew everybody and went out with everybody and had dinner, So I think the person, what I found interesting in my research is the person that I found Stan really seemed to have a rivalry with was Jim Warren. Warren once mentioned that he would like to run over Stan Lee with a glass-bottom boat so he could watch it die as the boat.
Oh God!
That's harsh.
It's true. I have a good example of that. When Stan and I agreed to do this magazine, the name we agreed on was Comics with an X International, because I wanted to include a lot of the European artists. And he said, "I love it. That's great." He said, "We'll get the contracts and we'll move forward." Somehow, word leaked to Jim Warren that we were going to do this. And so Jim Warren moved faster. And at a certain point, I don't know the exact timing on this, he called Stan and he said, "Let's have lunch." And Stan was probably leery, but he agreed to have the lunch. So they're sitting down, they're talking. Jim said, "I hear you're doing a magazine with some underground cartoonists, is that right?" And Stan said, "Well, I don't know how you heard about that, but yeah." I said, "You got a name for it?" Stan said, "Well, yeah, but I'm not telling you." And Warren pulled out his valise and he held up a copy of Comics International that he had quickly thrown together with Richard Corbin. And completely gobsmacked. Stan called me right after lunch and he said, "Come up with a new name."
Well, I think Stan maybe had offhandedly said something like, "Oh, we're not going to compete with Warren, we don't do black and white books." And then, of course, realized, oh, you're in that business after all. And, so I don't know how much of that was show and how much of it was real, was actual enmity, but certainly for the period when Warren was publishing, there was heavy competition. Anybody else have a question? Yes?
Yeah, I was just curious, when all that stuff came out about all the rumors and things, and then later, like about last year or so, the agents and all that, all those rumors came out. What were you guys' opinions on that?
You mean as being taken advantage of financially? I mean, I personally wasn't surprised. A lot of us knew that he made poor choices with his business connections, like with Peter Paris, was that the guy who Peter Paul ended up in prison. He didn't seem to have good judgment when it came to financial partners.
Obviously it's tragic, it's horrible, and I think there'll be decades of lawsuits, result. But I mean, it was a classic kind of greatest generation story where he outlived so many of his contemporaries, and he outlived a lot of the people who he trusted to watch out for him, and then suddenly, it's actually, from what I understand, a fairly common kind of Hollywood story. I mean, you got Mickey Rooney, Groucho also, right? You have a famous person who just takes advantage of it.
Yeah, and let's face it, some of our bad reputation is deserved. Comic book people are not notorious for having savings accounts. How many, I don't really want an answer to this, but how many people in this room have been in tax trouble at one time or another? You just don't want to, that stuff drives you nuts, and you don't want to bother with it. So you think maybe the gremlins will come down and sprinkle gremlin dust. And eventually you find yourself spending a lot of time in government offices. Those of us who were lucky enough to have Sid Silverman as an accountant never had that problem. But a lot of people did.
Well, those are the two comic book accountants. There was Paul Levitt's uncle, and there was Ed Wein's uncle. Sid was Paul's uncle,
Yeah.
and a guy named Murray Glazer was Len Wein's uncle. Those are the two main comic book accountants for many
I
years.
didn't know about the Len Wein
Oh,
connection.
yeah.
There's also David Vitale. He's been me, Mike Carlin, like our accountant for like 30 years. And then at one point you realize these guys are going to retire. And you know,
You
these
need to
guys
find an 11-year-old.
need to find an 11-year-old who understands that comic book people make no money and have no pensions.
And can deduct
And can deduct
buying comic books.
Yeah, you can deduct your comic book.
Murray had a very reassuring thing he would say. I'd say, Murray, I'm not comfortable with that deduction. He'd say, what's the worst they can do? Throw you in jail? Thank you, I feel much better now.
Right.
Yes, sir.